"Oh my God, my ex-lover, really?" Preston Hale's voice cut through the hum of the Seattle Art Museum like a blade dipped in arrogance. The chandelier lights shimmered off his cufflinks as if applauding his cruelty. Olivia Reed froze mid-step, her breath catching in her throat. It had been 3 years since that day, 3 years since he left her at the altar with 300 guests watching and whispers spreading like wildfire. Yet here he was, perfectly groomed, perfectly smug, as if history were a minor inconvenience he'd long forgotten. Olivia turned, her composure sharp as glass. "Ex-lover?" she echoed, her voice even, almost amused. "You're right, Preston. The woman you left, she died that day. What's standing here now is someone who learned to stop begging for respect." His smile faltered. Around them, the gallery's chatter dimmed. People pretended to study the art, but leaned closer, curious. Olivia could feel every stare, every tick of pity that clung to her name. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. She needed an exit. And then she saw him, a man standing quietly by the Rothko painting, tall, composed, dressed in a charcoal suit. His presence radiated calm strength, the kind that didn't demand attention but commanded it naturally. Without a second thought, she walked toward him, her heels clicking like gunshots against marble. When she reached his side, she slipped her hand into his. "There you are," she said smoothly, turning back to Preston. "Preston, this is John, my partner. John, this is someone I used to know." The stranger didn't flinch. His eyes steady, dark, kind met hers for a heartbeat, reading the unspoken plea. Then, with a gentle smile, he extended his hand. "John Foster," he said. "Nice to meet you." Preston blinked, momentarily off balance. "Partner, huh? That's new." John's voice was soft but firm. "New doesn't mean temporary." Preston's jaw tightened, but Olivia could see the flash of humiliation in his eyes. For the first time, he didn't have control of the story. "Well," he muttered, "congratulations, Olivia. Seems you found someone brave enough." "Bravery had nothing to do with it," she said coldly. "It's called maturity. You should try it sometime." The silence that followed was delicious. Even the violinist near the corner seemed to pause mid-note. Preston turned away, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land, and disappeared into the crowd. Olivia exhaled, her pulse racing. She looked at John, ready to apologize. But his smile stopped her. "You didn't owe me that rescue," he said. She blinked. "Excuse me? I saw what happened. You didn't owe me the hand, the act, any of it. But I'm glad you chose me anyway." She tried to hide the flush creeping up her neck. "I thank you. I just needed to breathe," he finished for her. "It's okay. Happens to the best of us." There was a warmth in his tone that disarmed her. For a moment, she allowed herself to look at him properly, his calm posture, the slight smile that felt sincere in a room full of pretenders. "You handle chaos well," she said. "Lawyers have to," he replied. "Civil rights cases don't exactly come with polite endings." She tilted her head. "Civil rights? That's heavy." "Truth usually is." He turned toward the painting again, and for a second, she followed his gaze. The red and black blocks of color seemed to hum with quiet pain. "Funny," he said softly. "People think art like this is depressing. I think it's honest." Olivia wanted to say something, anything, but words slipped away. Honesty wasn't a language she spoke often anymore. Not since Preston. She checked her phone. It was nearly 10. "Well," she said, adjusting her clutch. "Thank you for playing along. You were convincing." "You too," he said, a hint of laughter in his voice. "But if we're both that good, maybe we should get paid." She laughed despite herself. "You're not going to let me leave without at least buying you a drink, are you?" "No," he said simply. "But I'll settle for coffee. 1 cup, my treat." Her instinct told her to decline, but something deeper, something quieter told her that maybe, for once, she could say yes. "Fine," she said. "Coffee, but not tonight." "Tomorrow then," he said, with the calm certainty of a man who didn't chase but never waited in vain. She gave a small nod and walked away, her heels echoing into the gallery's vastness. The night air outside bit cold against her skin, the city's lights shimmering on wet pavement. She looked at her hand, the one he'd held. It was warm, steady, still humming with something she didn't want to name. For the first time in years, Olivia Reed wasn't thinking about what she'd lost. She was thinking about what she might still find. Inside the museum, John watched her leave through the glass door. He smiled faintly, the kind that came from recognition rather than attraction. Some people meet by accident, others collide by necessity, and somewhere between the two, a story begins. The next morning, the rain in Seattle came soft and steady, the kind that made the whole city look like it was wrapped in fog and second chances. Olivia sat by the window of a small cafe on First Avenue, stirring her coffee without tasting it. She'd told herself she came here to clear her head, to think through a new product launch, to focus. But that was a lie, and she knew it. When John Foster walked in tall, composed, with a navy coat and a quiet confidence that seemed to belong to another era, she felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest. He spotted her instantly and smiled, not with surprise, but with the ease of someone who had already decided to show up. "You said not tonight," he said, setting his umbrella by the door. "You didn't say never." She allowed herself a small smile. "You're persistent." "I'm a lawyer," he said lightly. "We get paid to argue with no." He sat across from her, and for a moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, like two people waiting for the right key to open a lock. Outside, the drizzle blurred the passing headlights. Inside, the scent of roasted beans and old wood grounded them. Finally, Olivia said, "I'm not sure why I agreed to this." "Me neither," John said. "But I'm glad you did." She looked up, her eyes sharp. "You don't know me." "No," he said. "But I know what fear looks like. I've seen it in too many courtrooms, people trying to stay calm while the ground shifts under their feet. You were standing in front of that painting like someone watching her own house burn down." She blinked, surprised by how precisely he saw her. "That's poetic," she said. "Pain usually is when you survive it." For a moment, she couldn't look away. "What kind of law did you say you practice?" "Civil rights," he said. "Mostly discrimination and employment cases. The small fights that end up being big ones. And you win them? Not always, but I make noise. Sometimes that's enough." Olivia nodded slowly. "Noise can be dangerous. Silence is worse." The words hit her like a soft punch. She looked down at her coffee, realizing it had gone cold. He noticed and signaled the waitress. "2 refills," he said, then added, "And maybe something sweet to go with all this bitterness?" She smiled despite herself. "You're awfully confident for a man who just got roped into a fake relationship last night." "I've been called worse," he said. "Besides, you look like you needed a partner in crime." "Crime's one word for it," she murmured. "Humiliation's another." John tilted his head. "He hurt you badly." "He humiliated me publicly," she said, surprising herself with the sharpness of her tone. "On our wedding day. My mother called it a lesson in composure. The press called it a spectacle, and I called it Tuesday." He didn't interrupt. He just listened, really listened. And somehow that made it easier to keep talking. "After that, I buried myself in work. Built walls, made money, collected respect like it was armor. And then last night, all it took was one smirk from him to make me 14 again, desperate to prove I wasn't a fool." "You weren't," John said quietly. "He was. There's a difference." Olivia looked at him and saw something she hadn't expected, no pity, just recognition. "You sound like you've been there." "Once," he said. "She was white. Her family didn't think I fit the picture. Neither did she, after a while. Love's easier when it doesn't need defending." Olivia exhaled, a long, slow release of something she'd been holding for years. "I'm sorry. Don't be. Some stories aren't meant to end happily. They're just meant to end." The waitress brought their coffees, and for a while they drank in silence, letting the world outside move at its usual hurried pace. Then John said, "You know, I'm hosting a small community concert tomorrow, raising funds for a youth program. You should come." "A concert?" she asked. "I'm not much for crowds." "Neither am I. But sometimes you find peace where noise lives." "That's a very lawyer thing to say." "Actually," he said with a grin, "that's a very human thing to say." She hesitated. Every instinct told her to decline, to retreat into the fortress she'd spent years building. But something about his calm persistence, his quiet decency, made her pause. "What kind of music?" "Local jazz, a bit rough around the edges. Honest." "Honest?" she repeated softly. "I haven't been to an honest place in a long time." "Then maybe it's time," he said simply. She gave a small nod, pretending not to care. "Fine. But if I hate it, I'm blaming you. Deal, he said, standing to leave. And if you love it? That won't happen, she said, though her smile betrayed her. We'll see. As he walked away, Olivia found herself watching his reflection in the rain-slick window. He moved with the ease of someone unafraid to take up space, to exist unapologetically in a world that still judged him for the color of his skin. There was something magnetic about that, about a man who didn't fight to be seen, only to be understood. She turned back to her coffee. It had gone cold again, but she didn't mind. For the first time in years, she wasn't numb. She was awake. And as the rain deepened outside, tapping gently against the glass, Olivia Reed realized that some storms didn't come to break her, they came to wash her clean. The following evening, Seattle glowed in soft amber light, the rain finally easing after 2 relentless days. Olivia stood outside the small brick community center on Cherry Street, clutching her coat tighter around her. Music drifted faintly through the open windows, jazz, warm and alive, mingling with laughter. For a woman used to boardrooms and silent restaurants, the sound of unpolished joy was unsettling. Yet, for reasons she couldn't explain, she didn't turn away. Inside, John was talking to an elderly woman near the piano, his sleeves rolled up, laughter crinkling the corners of his eyes. He looked natural there, comfortable in a way that made Olivia feel like she'd wandered into his real world. When he noticed her by the door, he smiled, not surprised, as if he had known she'd come. "You made it," he said, walking toward her. "Barely," she replied, glancing around at the crowded hall. "I think this room violates several fire codes." "That's what makes it authentic," he teased. "Here, people don't measure worth in square footage." She shot him a look but couldn't help smiling. The room was filled with locals, young musicians tuning instruments, parents chatting, kids chasing each other between chairs. The walls were decorated with hand-painted quotes, "Equality is not charity, it's justice." Olivia felt slightly out of place in her tailored coat and pearl earrings. "You okay?" John asked gently. "You look like you're doing math in your head." "Just trying to calculate the risk of being recognized," she said. "A CEO at a community fundraiser, people might think I'm running for office. Or maybe they'll just think you care." She rolled her eyes. "That would be new." "You'd be surprised," he said, offering her a cup of sweet tea. "Around here, caring still impresses people." She took a sip, and for a moment, the cinnamon and warmth pulled her back decades to her grandmother's kitchen before life got complicated. A young saxophonist began playing, the notes raw but soulful. John leaned closer, his voice low enough to blend with the music. "That's Marcus, first in his family to graduate high school, plays like he's chasing something he hasn't named yet." Olivia watched the boy's fingers dance over the brass, each note spilling like confession. "He's good," she murmured. "He's honest," John corrected softly. "There's a difference." She looked at him, caught by the way he said it not as a critique, but as truth. For the next hour, they talked quietly between songs. He told her about his cases, small victories, that never made headlines but changed lives quietly. She told him about the suffocating politics of her company, about having to smile through rooms full of men who saw her success as an inconvenience. Somewhere between laughter and confessions, something shifted. It wasn't attraction, it was recognition. Two people, both tired of pretending. When the concert ended, the crowd thinned. John walked her outside into the cool night. The city smelled of wet pavement and possibility. "You didn't hate it," he said. "I didn't," she admitted. "That boy, Marcus, he reminded me why people fight for something. It's not about winning, it's about not being invisible." He smiled, clearly pleased. "You sound like me now." "Don't get used to it," she said, tugging her coat closer. "Tomorrow I'll go back to spreadsheets and quarterly goals." "And tonight?" he asked. She hesitated. "Tonight I'm just here." They stood in silence, watching the city lights shimmer across puddles. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel the need to fill the silence. It felt enough. Then her phone buzzed, an email notification flashing across the screen. From Lily Chen. "Urgent. Preston's back in the press." Olivia's chest tightened. "What is it?" John asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. "Just work." But her tone betrayed her. "You don't have to face him alone, you know." "I'm not afraid of him," she said sharply, then paused. "I'm afraid of who I become when he's near." John nodded slowly, understanding more than she said. Then maybe it's time to rewrite the ending. She met his gaze. You talk like life's a courtroom. It is, he said quietly. Every day's a trial. We either defend our truth or let someone else define it. They walked together toward her car, rain beginning again in soft drizzles. Before she got in, she turned to him. You really believe that, don't you? That truth wins? Not always, he said. But silence never does. The phrase lingered in the air between them, like a promise or a warning. She wanted to reply but couldn't. Instead, she got into her car and drove off, the windshield wipers keeping time with her heartbeat. Through the blur of rain, she caught her reflection in the mirror, her own eyes staring back, uncertain but alive. That night, long after she got home, Olivia stood by the window, looking out at the skyline that had once felt like her kingdom. For years she'd built walls out of ambition and self-control. But now, cracks had started to appear, and through them, light was beginning to leak in. Somewhere in that city, John Foster was probably finishing his paperwork, maybe sipping another cup of sweet tea, unaware that he had just shaken something inside her she'd thought long dead. And for the first time since her wedding day, Olivia Reed whispered a truth she hadn't dared speak aloud. I'm not broken, just unfinished. 2 days later, the rain had stopped, but left Seattle smelling of salt and renewal. Olivia sat in her office at Reed Technologies, a sleek glass fortress overlooking the Sound. Her desk was immaculate, her calendar overbooked, and her reflection on the window looked exactly as it should a woman in control. Yet beneath the surface, she felt the quiet tremor of something she couldn't quite name. The door opened without a knock. Lily Chen stepped in, carrying 2 coffees and a look that meant news. You saw the article? Olivia didn't turn. Yes. Preston's doing interviews now, talking about how you lost your way after the breakup. It's trending on business feeds. Olivia exhaled through her nose, calm but cold. Of course it is. He's predictable, like humidity. Lily hesitated before sitting down. Do you want me to issue a response? No, Olivia said flatly. Let him talk. The louder he gets, the smaller he sounds. Lily studied her for a long moment. He's not the only one talking, Liv. The board's been whispering something about optics. They're nervous. Olivia finally turned. Nervous about what? That I drink coffee with a black lawyer? The words were sharp, and the air in the room seemed to tighten. Lily looked down, voice softer. They think it sends the wrong message to investors. Olivia's laugh was short and bitter. Of course they do. God forbid their CEO look human. For a moment neither spoke. Outside, gulls wheeled over the gray water, free and unbothered. Then Lily said quietly, John's good for you, you know. You smile when you talk about him. That's new. He's different, Olivia admitted. He listens, doesn't try to fix me, just sees me. And that scares you, Lily said gently. It should, Olivia replied, turning back to the window. Being seen is how you get hurt. Later that afternoon, she found herself driving without destination. Somehow her car took her to a quiet park near the Central District, the same neighborhood where John had invited her for dinner. She parked near a small house with a porch light that glowed amber against the dusk. Before she could overthink it, she knocked. John opened the door, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, as though the day had been long but kind to him. Olivia, he said, surprised but smiling. You're early. Early for what? Dinner, he said simply. I was going to invite you anyway. Guess I don't have to. She blinked. How did you call it? Intuition, he said, stepping aside. The smell of fried chicken, cornbread, and something sweet filled the air. Inside, the walls were warm earth tones, the furniture simple but loved. A woman appeared from the kitchen, gray hair, steady posture, and eyes full of wisdom. You must be Olivia, she said. I'm Grace, John's mother. Dinner's ready, so if you're staying, you're eating. Olivia smiled awkwardly. I wouldn't want to intrude. Nonsense, Mama Grace said, waving a spoon like a conductor's baton. You don't walk into this house and leave hungry. Sit. John grinned as he pulled out a chair. Told you she'd say that. The table was set with care, mashed potatoes, collard greens, fried chicken, and sweet tea. Olivia hesitated before taking a seat, her usual confidence slipping under the warmth of something unfamiliar belonging. We pray before we eat, Mama Grace said gently. Not for show, just gratitude. Olivia bowed her head. The prayer was simple, unpolished, yet it reached somewhere deep. When they began to eat, conversation flowed easily. Mama Grace asked about Olivia's work. Olivia described her company's outreach projects, careful not to sound like she was selling. Grace nodded, listening closely. "Good work," she said. "But don't forget, helping people isn't a strategy, it's a duty." Olivia met her eyes and nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The words came naturally, like respect rediscovered. John watched the exchange quietly, a trace of admiration in his gaze. When Mama Grace excused herself to take a phone call, Olivia leaned back, looking around. Family photos lined the shelves. John as a boy, smiling beside his father in an old police uniform. "Your dad?" she asked softly. John nodded. "He passed when I was 20. Shot while trying to stop a domestic dispute. Mom never remarried. Said love like that doesn't need replacing." Olivia's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He died doing what he believed in. That's all any of us can ask." She studied him for a moment, the steadiness, the grace in the way he carried loss. It was the opposite of the world she knew, where pain was something to hide, not wear openly. "You ever wish you'd taken an easier path?" she asked. "Every day," he said, smiling faintly. "But I like who I am, too much to regret who I had to be." After dinner, they stepped onto the porch. The air was cool, fragrant with rain, soaked wood. Fireflies blinked lazily in the yard. "Your mother's remarkable," Olivia said. "She'd say the same about you," John replied. "She told me to invite you again. That means you passed the test." "Test? If she doesn't like someone, dinner ends in 15 minutes. You made it an hour and a half." Olivia laughed softly. "I guess that's progress." "I'd say so," he said, watching her. "You're different here. Less armor." "That's temporary," she murmured. "Tomorrow I go back to pretending." "You don't have to pretend with me." The way he said it quiet, unwavering, sent a tremor through her. She wanted to answer, to tell him that pretending was all she'd ever known. But instead, she looked away. "Good night, John." "Good night, Olivia." As she walked to her car, she felt something strange, a pull, not of romance yet, but of recognition. For the first time in years, she wasn't the CEO, the public figure, the woman who'd been left. She was just a person sitting at someone's dinner table, being seen and not judged. And as she drove away under the sleeping lights of Seattle, Olivia realized that belonging didn't have to mean losing yourself. Sometimes, it just meant being invited to stay. The week after dinner with John and Mama Grace, Olivia felt like she was walking on the edge of two worlds. In one, the rhythm of Reed Technologies pulsed board meetings, product deadlines, investor calls. In the other, there was John's world, warm, unhurried, uncalculated. She hadn't realized how loud her life was until she started spending time in the quiet of his. On Monday morning, her assistant placed a folder on her desk. "You should see this," he said carefully. Inside were printouts of an online article, Olivia Reed, the CEO who fell from grace. Below the headline, a picture of her and John leaving the community concert arm in arm. The caption read, "Seattle's tech queen sparks controversy with her new diversity romance." Her chest tightened, but she didn't flinch. She'd been dissected by the press before she knew the drill. Still, as she scrolled through the comments, a cold ache bloomed beneath her ribs. Words like career suicide, publicity stunt, and social climbing blurred together. She closed her laptop before the noise could sink its claws deeper. Her phone buzzed Lily calling. "Liv." "The board saw it," Lily said without preamble. "They're nervous. Preston's feeding the press. He's saying you're using this relationship to rehabilitate your image." "Of course he is," Olivia said tightly. "The man couldn't spell dignity if it were tattooed on his ego." "They want a statement," Lily continued. "Something neutral. Something to show you're focused on the company, not on being human," Olivia interrupted. "Liv, tell them I'll handle it," she said and hung up before Lily could argue. Later that afternoon, she drove to John's office, tucked in a modest red brick building downtown. Inside, the reception smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. A handwritten sign above the front desk read, "Justice begins with listening." John was standing by the window of his corner office, sleeves rolled up, phone pressed to his ear. He looked up and smiled when he saw her, motioning her in. "Yeah, I'll get back to you," he said into the phone before hanging up. "You look like someone who just fought a lion." "Try a room full of them," she replied, dropping into a chair. Preston stirring up the press. Again. The board's panicking. They think dating you makes me a liability. John leaned against his desk, folding his arms. And what do you think? I think they'd rather have a silent puppet than a CEO with a conscience. That's not what I asked. She looked up, meeting his gaze. I think I don't care, but that's a lie. I do. I've worked too hard to be dismissed as a headline. He nodded slowly. You care because you built something real. You just don't want them to define it for you. She sighed, rubbing her temples. How do you do that? What? Say things that sound like they belong on courthouse walls. Occupational hazard, he said with a faint smile. She smiled back, weary but grateful. You ever regret being the one who speaks up? Every day, he said honestly. But I regret silence more. The simplicity of it disarmed her. She stood, pacing by the window, looking out at the drizzle returning over the city. They'll never see you the way I do, she murmured. They'll see color, politics, scandal, never the man. Then stop letting them look for you, he said quietly. Let them look at you, she turned, brow furrowed. Meaning, stop reacting, start defining. The moment you explain yourself, you let them decide what your story is. His words settled deep. For someone used to commanding rooms, Olivia realized she'd spent most of her life defending her right to stand in them. When she left his office that night, she felt both lighter and heavier, like someone who'd been told the truth, not the comfort. The next morning she stood before the mirror in her penthouse, adjusting her blouse. Her phone buzzed with another reminder. Board meeting 10 a.m. She glanced at her reflection, her jaw tightening. Define yourself, she whispered under her breath. When she entered the boardroom, the tension was immediate. 10 men and 2 women sat around the long oak table, the city skyline glimmering behind them. Robert Gaines, the chairman, cleared his throat. Olivia, we're concerned about recent coverage. It's not about your personal life, it's about perception. Perception, she repeated. Interesting word. Usually means you're uncomfortable with what's real. A few glances exchanged across the table. Gaines pressed on. You're the face of this company. Public trust matters. And you think my relationship damages that? She asked evenly. We think, he said carefully, you might consider taking a step back from public appearances for now. She smiled thinly. Hide, you mean? Recenter, he corrected, for the good of the company. Olivia leaned forward. You want me invisible, but I built this company by being visible, by taking risks you all called reckless until they made you rich. So forgive me if I don't take moral lessons from men who panic every time a woman makes a choice you can't control. Silence. The air felt electric. Gaines cleared his throat again. We're just trying to protect Reed Technologies. From what? She asked. A woman loving a man who doesn't look like her? No one answered. Olivia stood, smoothing her jacket. Then let me protect it my way. She walked out, leaving a silence that felt like thunder after lightning. That night, she met John at a small diner near the waterfront. The lights were dim, the coffee strong, the waitress humming an old blues tune under her breath. How'd it go? He asked. I survived, she said. Barely. He smiled. Progress. She took a long sip of coffee, then said quietly, You once told me silence never wins. Still true. Then I guess I just declared war. He raised his cup in a toast. To courage. She met his eyes. To consequence. And as they sat there in the small diner, with the storm beginning again outside, Olivia knew that the first crack had already formed, not in her reputation, but in the wall she'd built around herself. The fight ahead would cost her, but for the first time, it felt like a price worth paying. Friday evening settled over Seattle like a slow exhale, the sky streaked with the last of the fading light. Olivia parked outside John's house, clutching a bottle of Pinot she'd picked up on the way. She wasn't sure if it was meant as a thank you, an apology, or both. All she knew was that after the week she'd had press scandals, boardroom tension, whispers about her sanity, she needed quiet, and his house was the only place that felt capable of offering it. The porch light flickered as she knocked. A familiar voice called from inside, warm and commanding, Doors open, honey. Don't let the cold in. Mama Grace. Olivia smiled faintly and stepped inside. The air smelled of cornbread and rosemary. John was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring something in a pot. You came, he said without looking up. I said I would, she replied, placing the wine on the counter. You didn't think I'd let a lawyer hold that against me, did you? He turned then, smiling softly. You've had a week. You read the news, she said, sinking into a chair. I live in America. Everyone reads the news. And? She asked, bracing herself. And I think you handled it better than most would. You didn't run. That counts for something. It doesn't feel like it. It never does when you're still in the middle of the fire. Mama Grace entered just then, carrying a tray of biscuits. You two planning to talk all night or eat while it's still hot? Yes, ma'am, Olivia said quickly, earning a chuckle from John. Dinner was a blur of warmth and laughter. They talked about small things, food, music, the Seahawks carefully avoiding the storm raging outside their little circle of light. When the meal ended, Mama Grace excused herself, leaving them with the quiet hum of the house. John leaned back, watching Olivia. There's a story behind that look, he said. Which one? The one that says you're thinking about leaving before dessert, she sighed. The board's restless. They think I'm reckless, impulsive. My mother called this morning, she said the same thing. And she made sure to remind me that I wasn't raised for this kind of scandal. Your mother loves you, he said carefully. She loves control, Olivia corrected. She thinks appearances are morality. And you? I think appearances are expensive lies, but I've built a career selling them. He nodded slowly, considering that. You can't live in two worlds forever. Eventually, one stops calling your name. She looked at him, half a smile curling on her lips. You make that sound easy. It's not, he said, but it's simple. She toyed with her napkin. How did you learn to live like this? Calm, steady, untouched by what people think. You think I don't care what people think? He asked. I care every day, but I had to choose between being respected and being real. I chose real. Olivia studied him. There was no pretense in his tone, no performative wisdom, just lived truth. You make it sound noble. It's not. It's survival. The house fell silent for a moment, the ticking of a wall clock filling the air. Then John stood, grabbing his jacket. Come on, he said. I want to show you something. Now? Now. 10 minutes later, they were driving through the Central District. The streets were quiet, dotted with corner stores and murals that told stories of struggle and resilience. He parked in front of a small community center with fading paint. What is this? She asked. My father helped build it, he said. Before he died, he told me justice doesn't start in courtrooms, it starts in rooms like this. Inside, the air smelled of dust and memory. Folding chairs were stacked against the wall, old photographs framed crookedly. A hand-painted sign near the door read, We rise together, or not at all. We host meetings here, John said. Local youth programs, tenant rights clinics. Sometimes we just feed people who need to be seen. Olivia traced her fingers along a photograph of John's father, young, uniformed, proud. He looks like you. He was louder, John said with a smile. Believed noise was necessary. I learned to prefer quiet. But lately, he glanced at her, I'm starting to think he was right. You mean about me? She teased. About what it takes to change things. People listen when the quiet ones finally speak. Olivia looked around again, feeling the weight of those words. For years, she'd spoken in boardrooms where every sentence was measured, polished, strategic. Here, words had blood in them, real, raw, alive. This place, she said softly, it's what the world's supposed to be, isn't it? It's what it could be, he said, if people stopped asking permission to care. She turned toward him. And you think I can do that? Care loudly? I think you already do, he said. You're just scared of what it'll cost. His gaze met hers, steady, grounding. But courage isn't the absence of fear, Olivia. It's loving something enough to lose for it. She didn't answer. The truth of it sat between them, humming like the quiet jazz, still playing faintly from a distant speaker. On the drive back, neither spoke. The rain began again, soft and rhythmic, painting the city in streaks of light. When he pulled up to her car, she hesitated before getting out. Thank you, she said. For dinner. For perspective. You don't owe me thanks, he said. Just promise me something. What? When the time comes and it will, don't flinch. She met his eyes. From what? From the truth. The next morning, Olivia woke before dawn, standing at her window as the sun crept over the sound. Somewhere in the quiet between night and day, She realized John hadn't just shown her a building. He'd shown her a choice, one she could no longer avoid. The following Monday began with the sound of breaking news. Olivia's face filled the morning broadcasts, every channel dissecting her personal life like it was a national scandal. CEO Olivia Reed under fire for controversial relationship amid corporate unrest. The headline scrolled beneath her image. She stood in her kitchen, coffee untouched, watching her own composure crumble in slow motion on every screen. The footage was invasive paparazzi shots of her and John outside the diner, grainy video from the community center. They painted a story she didn't recognize. A woman spiraling, reckless, unstable. Her phone rang incessantly, board members, investors, her mother. She ignored them all until the knock on her door came. It was Lily, breathless, holding a folded newspaper. "Liv, you need to see this," she said, spreading it on the counter. There it was, a quote from Preston Hale. "I only hope Olivia finds peace. She's clearly struggling. She's not the woman I once knew." Olivia read it once, twice, her hands tightening until the page crumpled. "Struggling?" she whispered. "That man left me bleeding in public and now he gets to sound compassionate?" "He's spinning the story," Lily said softly. "He's framing you as unstable so that if you push back, you look emotional." Olivia's voice was low, sharp. "I won't let him write my ending again." "Then you need to get ahead of it," Lily urged. "Make a statement, your way." Olivia looked out the window, rain streaking down the glass like ink. "No," she said after a long silence. "Not a statement. A story." That afternoon she called John. "I need your help," she said. "I want to host a press event at the community center. I want people to see what really matters." John paused. "Olivia, that's not a neutral move. It's a declaration." "Good," she said. "Let's declare something real." On Wednesday, the press gathered in the small hall on Cherry Street, cameras flashing against the faded paint and folding chairs. It was a sharp contrast to the glossy corporate events Olivia usually commanded, but that was the point. John stood at her side, quiet support embodied. Mama Grace sat in the front row, chin lifted proudly. When Olivia stepped to the microphone, the room hushed. "I've been told to stay silent," she began, her voice steady. "To protect my image, my company, my legacy. But silence has a way of becoming permission, and I won't give permission for lies to define me." The words fell heavy, real. She paused, meeting the eyes of reporters who'd come expecting contrition. "I am not a scandal. I am a woman who has built something from nothing. I am a leader who believes success means nothing if it's not shared. And yes, I'm in a relationship with a man who challenges me to be honest, brave, and human. If that offends you, you might ask yourself why." The murmurs rippled through the crowd, but Olivia didn't flinch. She gestured toward John. "This man fights every day for people who don't have a voice in rooms like this. I stand with him because justice isn't charity, it's courage. And it starts with refusing to bow to fear." The room erupted in questions, cameras clicking like gunfire. She answered none of them, simply stepping back, placing a hand on John's arm. His eyes met hers steady, unshaken. When they left the building, the sky had cleared. The air felt different, lighter. "You did it," John said quietly. "No," she corrected. "We did, but the victory was short-lived." By nightfall, the backlash had begun. Anonymous online posts twisted her words, turning courage into arrogance. A leaked email from a board member hinted at a vote of no confidence. And then, just past midnight, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You should have stayed silent. You're about to lose everything." Olivia stared at the message, her pulse quickening. She didn't know who sent it, Preston, a rival, or someone else, but the threat was real enough. She called John. "Someone's trying to bury me," she said. "Then they're scared," he replied. "People only bury what they fear will rise." "I don't want you caught in this," she said. "You already are," he said simply. "And I'm not leaving." The next morning, she walked into the office to find tension so thick it hummed. Her assistant avoided eye contact. The boardroom door was closed, whispers leaking through the frosted glass. She pushed it open. The conversation stopped. Gaines looked up from his seat at the head of the table. "Olivia," he said, voice smooth, too polite. "We were just discussing next steps." "You mean how to get rid of me?" she said. "Let's not dance around it." A few members shifted uncomfortably. Gaines clasped his hands. The situation has become untenable. The market is reacting poorly. Investors are anxious. We need stability. You want a figurehead, not a leader, Olivia said. Someone who won't make you uncomfortable. We want what's best for the company, Gaines insisted, and that may require new leadership. The words hit like a hammer, but she didn't blink. If this is about reputation, she said slowly, then let me remind you what built this company: integrity, innovation, and the courage to do what others wouldn't. If you want a puppet, vote now. But understand this: Reed Technologies was founded on my name, and I won't watch you strip it of its soul. Silence. Then a voice from the end of the table: Lily's. I stand with her. The tension cracked. One by one, others followed. Not all, but enough. Gaines looked furious but trapped. This isn't over, he hissed. No, Olivia said. It's just beginning. That night, back at home, she sat by the window with a glass of wine. The city stretched before her, quiet and endless. John's words echoed in her mind. Don't flinch from the truth. She hadn't. And though she didn't yet know what the cost would be, she felt something deeper than victory clarity. She picked up her phone and typed a message. To those who think I've lost everything, you're wrong. I've found myself. Then she hit post. Outside, thunder rumbled over Puget Sound, low and promising. The following morning dawned gray and heavy, the kind of Seattle sky that promised rain even when it didn't deliver. Olivia woke early, her mind sharp despite the exhaustion clawing at her. Her post from the night before had gone viral, millions of views, thousands of comments, a split between admiration and outrage. Some called her brave, others called her reckless. But for the first time in years, she didn't care which side spoke louder. Downstairs, her phone vibrated with a call from Lily. You're trending on every platform, Lily said breathlessly. Half the media's praising your speech at the community center, the other half says you're dismantling corporate decorum. Corporate decorum, Olivia repeated, pouring coffee. That's just code for obedience. Still, Lily warned, Gaines isn't backing down. He's called an emergency shareholders meeting. They're voting on your position tomorrow. Olivia paused, her fingers tightening around the cup. Tomorrow. Yes, Lily said quietly. He's moving fast. Then so will I, Olivia said, her voice steady. After hanging up, she sat at the kitchen table, staring out at the sound, the water rippling like liquid steel. The easy path was retreat to resign, protect her dignity, and disappear. But John's words from the night before replayed in her mind. People only bury what they fear will rise. She stood. No more silence. No more permission. That afternoon, she called a meeting with her communications team. I want a live stream, she told them. Tonight, my platform. No filters, no edits. I'll speak directly to the shareholders and to the public. Her PR manager looked pale. Olivia, that's risky. Off-script messaging could save the company, she interrupted, or burn it down. Either way, I'd rather hold the match. The team exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. By evening, the lights were set in her office, cameras positioned against the skyline. Olivia stood before them in a navy suit. No jewelry, no polish, just conviction. As the stream went live, she took a deep breath. Good evening, she began. I've been accused of many things these past weeks: of losing control, of jeopardizing my company, of crossing lines that polite society prefers to keep in place. Maybe that's all true. Maybe I did cross a line. But let me ask, what good is a line if it only exists to keep some people out? She spoke calmly, her voice resonating through the lens. When I founded Reed Technologies, I promised to innovate, to make tools that connect people. Somewhere along the way, connection became a word we sold instead of a truth we lived. That ends tonight. From this point forward, Reed Technologies will commit 10% of its annual revenue to community programs that expand access to education and technology for underrepresented groups. Real inclusion, not lip service. The room behind the camera fell utterly silent. I didn't fall from grace, she continued, her tone softening. I walked away from a version of it that was never real, and if that cost me this chair, so be it. I'd rather stand in truth than sit in comfort. The stream ended. No applause, no reaction yet. Just silence, the kind that precedes either collapse or revolution. Hours later, as the city slept, her phone buzzed with messages. Support poured in: activists, young entrepreneurs, even rival CEOs commending her courage. But there were also threats, veiled and otherwise. She ignored them all. Then a new message appeared. It was from Preston. Still trying to be the hero? The board votes at 9. You'll lose. But don't worry, I'll make sure your exit looks dignified. Olivia stared at the screen, calm but cold. She typed back one sentence. I stopped needing your approval the day you walked away. The next morning, the shareholders gathered in the glass-walled conference room. Olivia stood at the head of the table, hands clasped, while Gaines droned on about public image, stability, and fiduciary duty. Preston, of course, sat beside him, smirking, immaculate, the living embodiment of old money and empty charm. When Gaines finally called for discussion, Olivia spoke. Before you vote, she said, I'd like to remind everyone here that this company was built on risk. Every breakthrough we've had came from a decision someone in this room called dangerous. The only difference now is that the risk isn't financial, it's moral. This isn't about morality, Gaines snapped. It's about stewardship. Exactly, Olivia said. And stewardship means leading when it's hard, not hiding when it's inconvenient. The room shifted. A few heads nodded. She pressed on. You can vote me out today. That's your right. But before you do, ask yourselves what you'll tell your children when they ask what you stood for. Stock prices or integrity? Silence stretched. Gaines cleared his throat. Enough speeches. Let's vote. The ballots were cast digital, silent, swift. Olivia waited, heart steady but alive. When the results flashed on the screen, a collective gasp filled the room. 53% in her favor. Gaines' face darkened. Preston stood, muttering something under his breath before storming out. Olivia stayed still, absorbing the weight of what had just happened. She hadn't just kept her position. She had shifted something fundamental inside this company, inside herself. When the room emptied, Lily appeared at her side, eyes shining. You did it, she whispered. No, Olivia said softly. We did. That evening, she drove to the community center. John was there, helping a group of kids pack up instruments after their music lesson. When he saw her, his expression said everything: pride, relief, and something deeper. So, he asked. They tried to bury me, she said, smiling faintly. Turns out I had roots. He chuckled, stepping closer. You're dangerous when you bloom. So are you, she replied, meeting his gaze. For a long, quiet moment, neither spoke. The hum of the city outside, the soft laughter of children, the smell of rain-soaked pavement, it all folded into something whole, something true. Olivia exhaled slowly. I thought winning would feel louder. Real victories usually don't, he said. They just make you quiet enough to hear yourself again. She smiled, the weight in her chest finally lifting. Then maybe, she said softly, I've just begun. Hurry. 2 weeks after the vote, the storm around Olivia began to calm, at least on the surface. The news cycle had shifted to another scandal, and the headlines about her were slowly being buried under new noise. But inside Reed Technologies, the atmosphere was changing in ways no press could capture. For the first time, employees greeted her with genuine smiles instead of cautious nods. The community partnership initiative she'd announced was taking shape faster than anyone expected. Engineers volunteering to teach coding workshops, designers mentoring local students, programmers building free accessibility tools. It wasn't just PR anymore, it was purpose. Yet beneath the progress, another tension brewed, one Olivia couldn't quite name. Preston had gone quiet since the vote, which was never a good sign. He disappeared from social media, stopped taking calls, and rumors whispered through the grapevine that he was planning something. Lily had warned her, men like Preston don't vanish. They retreat, regroup, and strike where it hurts most. Olivia had brushed it off, but that warning echoed louder each day. One afternoon, she was in her office reviewing reports when her assistant knocked. You have a visitor, he said nervously. He doesn't have an appointment, but he said you'd want to see him. Who? Preston Hale. The name hit like static. Olivia straightened, her tone even. Send him in. Preston entered wearing that same immaculate confidence, his smile rehearsed but hollow. Olivia, he said smoothly. You look resilient. You look predictable, she replied, standing. What do you want? To talk, he said, spreading his hands. Privately. You lost that privilege when you weaponized my name, she said. Say what you came to say, he sighed, feigning disappointment. Still dramatic. Fine. I'll be direct. Your little social crusade, charming as it is killing your market value. Sponsors are nervous. Partners are reconsidering. I came to offer a way out. You mean your way, she said, crossing her arms. Merge Reed Technologies with Hale Enterprises. I take the financial helm, you stay the face. Together, we stabilize the company's image. You get to keep your chair and your morality. I get to keep you from driving it into the ground. Olivia stared at him, equal parts disbelief and pity. You're unbelievable. I'm practical, he said softly. You may have won the vote, but investors don't trust emotion. They trust control. And right now, you look like a liability wrapped in a cause. You mean a woman who doesn't need your approval? His smile thinned. Don't mistake sympathy for equality, Olivia. The world doesn't forgive women who confuse rebellion for leadership. She stepped closer, her voice low and calm. No, Preston, it just doesn't forgive men who lose to them. His jaw twitched. Be careful, he warned. You think you're untouchable, but the higher you climb, the easier it is to pull you down. Then I'll build stairs for the ones behind me, she said. Let's see how many hands you can break before they stop reaching. Preston's eyes hardened, the mask finally slipping. You've changed, he said. Good, she replied. It means I'm still alive. He left without another word. Olivia exhaled slowly, adrenaline fading into something steadier. She walked to the window, looking out at the skyline, the city bathed in pale sunlight after days of rain. Her reflection stared back a woman unafraid, unbroken, unbothered by the ghosts that used to own her. That evening she met John at the community center. He was helping a group of teens set up new laptops for their coding class. When he saw her, he wiped his hands on his jeans and smiled. Long day? Long decade, she said. Preston came to see me. His smile faded. What did he want? Control, as always. He offered a merger. And you said? That I'd rather burn everything I built than let him own another piece of it. John studied her face for a moment, then nodded. Then you made the right call. It didn't feel easy. The right thing rarely does. She leaned against a desk, watching him as he talked to one of the students, a shy boy struggling with a line of code. John crouched beside him, patient, explaining step by step until the boy's face lit up with understanding. That quiet kindness, that unshowy brilliance, it disarmed her every time. When the class ended, they stepped outside. The night was crisp, the city lights reflecting on the damp pavement. You ever think about leaving? She asked suddenly. All the noise, the fighting, the endless fixing of things that shouldn't be broken? He smiled faintly. Every day. But then I remember who I'd be if I didn't. Someone quieter, smaller, and I've already done small. Olivia nodded, her breath visible in the cool air. I used to think power meant being untouchable. Now I think it's about letting yourself be touched and standing anyway. That's not weakness, John said. That's evolution. She turned to him, their faces close enough to share the same air. You think evolution hurts this much? Always, he said softly. That's how you know it's working. For a long moment, they said nothing. The city around them pulsed with life, sirens in the distance, laughter from a nearby cafe, the hum of something ordinary and miraculous all at once. Then Olivia whispered, He's not done with me, John. Preston won't stop. Then he'll learn what it means to fight someone who's already lost everything she's afraid of losing. His words lingered between them like a promise. She nodded slowly, the corners of her lips curving into the faintest, fiercest smile. Then let him come. As they walked toward the parking lot, their footsteps in rhythm, Olivia felt a stillness she hadn't known in years, not the silence of surrender, but the calm before a storm she finally knew how to weather. A week later, the calm broke. Olivia arrived at her office to find security guards waiting at the elevator. Their expressions were stiff, rehearsed. One of them stepped forward. Miss Reed, Mr. Gaines requested that you surrender your access badge. Effective immediately, you're on administrative leave pending internal investigation. Olivia blinked, disbelief flickering into cold understanding. Investigation for what? Financial misconduct, the guard said. There's evidence suggesting company funds were redirected to personal accounts through a shell charity. Olivia's voice was steady. That's ridiculous. There's no such account. Then I suggest you prove it. Gaines said as he emerged from the conference room, flanked by two lawyers. His tone was smooth as oil. "We've received anonymous documentation, and the board must act responsibly." "Anonymous?" Olivia repeated. "Let me guess, forwarded from a source too noble to name." "This isn't personal," Gaines said. "It's procedure. Everything's personal when power's involved," she replied, her jaw tight. He gave a small, pitying smile. "You've become a distraction, Olivia. Maybe some time away will give you perspective." "You mean silence. I mean survival." He nodded to the guards. "Escort her out." The walk through the lobby was quiet but suffocating. Employees turned away, pretending not to watch. Olivia didn't cry, didn't falter. The elevator doors closed, and with them, 15 years of control. When she stepped into the street, the drizzle began soft, mocking. Her phone buzzed with messages, none of which she opened. She walked for blocks without direction until she reached the waterfront. The city skyline glimmered through mist, blurred but unbroken. That's when her phone rang again, John. She answered, her voice flat. "They've suspended me." "I know," he said. "It's everywhere. They're saying you embezzled from your own initiative fund." "Preston," she whispered. "It has to be him." "Can you prove it?" "Not yet." "Then we will." His certainty was so calm it almost hurt. "I have friends who specialize in uncovering this kind of thing. We'll start tonight." "John, this isn't your fight. It is now." That evening, they met at his office. Files spread across the desk, the glow of his computer the only light in the room. "The transfer records," Olivia said, handing him a folder. "They're clean. But whoever did this knew my digital signature, my old encryption key. Someone inside," John said, "or someone with access to your old personal accounts." She froze. "Preston." "Exactly." Hours passed as they dug through records, tracing digital fingerprints, cross-checking timestamps. Finally, near midnight, John leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Got him. The shell account routes back to a company Preston founded 6 months ago, Hale Strategic Consulting, registered in Delaware. Classic laundering move." Olivia's pulse quickened. "Can we prove it's him?" "Not yet," John said. "But this file will." He turned the screen to her, a chain of emails between Preston and Gaines, discussing a necessary transition of leadership. "He bribed him," she said, disbelief giving way to fury. "They planned this." "We'll need to leak it carefully," John said. "If we go too fast, they'll claim fabrication. I'll reach out to a contact at the Seattle Chronicle. They'll verify." Olivia nodded, silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "He's not just trying to take the company. He's trying to destroy my credibility, make me the villain in a story he wrote." John's gaze softened. "Then let's rewrite it." The next day, the article broke online. The Chronicle headline read, "Leaked emails suggest conspiracy to oust Reed Technologies CEO." Within hours, the story spread like wildfire. Hashtags trended. Investors demanded answers. The company's PR line buckled under the pressure. By noon, Gaines resigned for personal reasons. Preston, however, went on the offensive. He appeared on a financial news segment, calling the leak a desperate stunt by a fallen executive clinging to relevance. Olivia watched from her living room, her jaw clenched. John muted the TV. "He's cornered. That's what men like him do when they're scared. They double down." "Then I'll give him something to be afraid of," she said. The following morning, Olivia called a press conference at the same community center where it all began. The room was full, cameras pointed, microphones ready. She walked to the podium, calm as still water. "2 weeks ago, I stood here and said silence would no longer define me. Today, I stand by that. I have been accused of crimes I did not commit by men who built their power on manipulation and deceit. But the truth has a way of surfacing, even through mud. And tonight, it has." She handed a flash drive to a journalist in the front row. "Inside are verified documents proving that the allegations against me were fabricated by Preston Hale and Robert Gaines. You can check the timestamps, the bank trails, the signatures. I didn't create this war, but I won't let it be fought in shadows." The murmurs rose, cameras flashing wildly. "I built this company from nothing," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "And I refuse to see it become a symbol of corruption. Integrity will outlast greed, even if I have to burn everything to prove it." The crowd erupted. By evening, the networks were ablaze with coverage. Preston's empire cracked within hours, clients withdrawing, partners distancing. Legal investigations followed, his name dragged through the same mud he'd tried to bury her in. Late that night, John drove Olivia home. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under amber streetlights. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it," she corrected. Again. He smiled, watching her reflection in the window. "You look lighter." "I think I am," she said softly. "It's strange losing everything, made me realize how much of it never mattered." They reached her building. Before she got out, she turned to him. "You once told me courage isn't the absence of fear. I think I finally understand. It's standing in front of what scares you and saying, 'Not today.' And tomorrow?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Tomorrow, we rebuild." He watched her go, the echo of her heels fading into the quiet night. For the first time in years, Olivia Reed wasn't running from her past. She was walking toward her future, steady, unflinching, and free. The days that followed felt like standing in the eye of a storm, eerily calm, yet humming with the aftershocks of chaos. Olivia became both symbol and spectacle, her face plastered across every news outlet. "The woman who fought back," one headline declared. "Corporate reckoning or calculated revenge," questioned another. But she didn't chase the noise anymore. She let it roar and pass over her. What mattered was the quiet work beneath it, the rebuilding. Reed Technologies was in recovery mode, investors cautious but curious, employees wary yet proud. Olivia spent long hours meeting every department, not as their untouchable CEO, but as a woman who had bled for what they all stood upon. The walls of separation she once thought were necessary had crumbled, and something honest was growing in their place. Still, victory carried a bitter edge. Preston was gone from the public eye, but the investigation hadn't yet ended. His lawyers fought ruthlessly, dragging the process out, muddying timelines, discrediting evidence. Late one night, as Olivia sat in her office reviewing case updates, a soft knock broke her focus. It was John. He looked tired, rainwater glistening on his jacket. "You should be asleep," she said. "So should you," he replied, stepping in. "I heard the prosecutors might call you to testify next week." "They will," she said, "and I'll be ready." "He's going to come after you harder than before," John warned. "Preston doesn't accept defeat. He dismantles it piece by piece." Olivia smiled faintly. "Then he'll have to work harder than he's ever worked in his life." John studied her for a moment, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "You're not afraid anymore." "I am," she admitted softly. "But I think fear stopped being my enemy when I stopped running from it." He nodded. "That's growth, Liv, the kind that sticks." She tilted her head. "You've been calling me that lately." "Habit," he said with a half smile. "You hate it?" "No," she said quietly. "I think I needed to remember who Liv was before all this." For a moment, the world outside the lawsuits, the press, the noise fell away. In the dim light of her office, surrounded by the symbols of her past, Olivia felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Peace, raw and fragile but real. "Do you ever regret helping me?" she asked. John's brows furrowed. "Why would I?" "Because you could have stayed safe, clean. You didn't have to be part of this mess." He leaned against her desk, crossing his arms. "I didn't do this to be safe. I did it because people like Preston win too often when good people stay quiet." "You really believe in justice, don't you?" "I believe in balance," he said. "Justice is just the human version of gravity. It might take time, but everything that rises on lies eventually falls." She smiled faintly. "You sound like my father." "Then he must have been a good man." "He was," she said softly. "He used to tell me, 'Grace under fire, live. That's how they'll remember you.' For years I thought grace meant silence. Now I know it means not losing yourself while you fight." "He'd be proud," John said. "So am I." The words settled between them like a soft chord. For a moment, neither moved. Outside, lightning flashed over the sound, followed by a low rumble that shook the windows. Olivia stood, walking toward the glass. "Funny," she murmured. "A year ago, I would have seen a storm like that and locked myself away until it passed. Now I kind of want to stand in it." "Then maybe that's what healing looks like," John said. "Learning not to hide from what's loud." She turned, her reflection framed against the storm. "You think this ends when Preston's gone?" "No," he said. "It ends when you stop needing it to." She exhaled, nodding. "Maybe I'm closer than I think." The next morning, she testified before the court. The room was packed reporters, lawyers, restless spectators. Preston sat at the defense table, immaculate as ever, his smirk restrained but alive. When she took the stand, their eyes met for the first time in months. He gave her a slow, mocking nod, as if they were still playing a private game. But Olivia wasn't playing anymore. "Miss Reed," the prosecutor began, "can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" "Once upon a time," Olivia said clearly, "I loved him. I thought power made us equal. I was wrong." Preston's jaw tightened. "He used that love to humiliate me, to discredit me, and eventually, to try and destroy what I built. But you can't destroy truth, you can only delay its arrival." The courtroom buzzed. Preston's attorney objected, but the judge waved it off. Olivia continued, her tone unwavering. "What I learned through all this is that control isn't power, integrity is. And the more they tried to take mine, the more I realized they could never touch it." When she stepped down from the stand, John was waiting in the hallway. "You did good," he said. "No," she corrected softly. "I did right." A week later, the verdict came. Preston was found guilty of fraud, obstruction, and conspiracy. His empire crumbled overnight. When the news broke, Olivia was at the community center, teaching a group of teens about entrepreneurship. The room erupted in cheers when they saw the headlines. Olivia smiled but didn't celebrate. It wasn't triumph, she felt it was release. Later that night, she and John stood outside, the sky clear for once. "It's over," he said. "For him," she replied. "But for me, it's just beginning." "What now?" he asked. She looked out over the city, the lights reflecting in her eyes. "Now I build something that outlives me, something clean." John smiled. "You already have." She turned to him. "You think so?" "I know so." They stood in silence, the hum of distant traffic, the only sound. And for the first time, Olivia felt the world settle not because the fight was done, but because she finally knew who she was beyond it. "Come on," John said softly. "Dinner's on me. You've earned something normal." "Normal?" she repeated with a small laugh. "That sounds revolutionary." As they walked away, hand brushing hand, the city behind them pulsed with quiet electricity, the kind that came not from chaos, but from renewal. And for the first time, Olivia Reed no longer felt like she was surviving her story. She was writing it. 6 months later, Seattle had changed, or maybe it was just Olivia who had. The city no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like something reborn, cleaner after the storm. Reed Technologies had stabilized, not because of damage control, but because of trust rebuilt. The new programs she launched, scholarships, mentorships, Tech for All initiatives, had become the company's beating heart. Investors who once doubted her were now lining up to praise her foresight. Yet Olivia had stopped chasing approval. She didn't need it anymore. On a cool spring morning, she stood on the rooftop terrace of her office building, the skyline stretching before her like an open horizon. Below, the hum of the city pulsed with life. She took a sip of coffee, savoring the quiet. Lily joined her, holding a tablet filled with reports. "You're early," Lily said. "Habit," Olivia replied, smiling. "The city's quietest before 8. It reminds me I'm part of something bigger than the noise." Lily handed her the tablet. "The board approved your expansion plan. You're officially funding 10 new community innovation hubs across the West Coast. You did it, Liv." Olivia smiled faintly. "No, we did it. Every person who stayed when it got hard did." Lily hesitated, her eyes soft. "He'd be proud of you, you know, your father." Olivia looked out at the water shimmering under the pale Sunday. "I hope so. I finally understand what he meant by grace under fire. It's not about being calm, it's about staying human." Lily nodded and left her alone, sensing the moment didn't need more words. Later that afternoon, Olivia drove to the Central District. The community center had been repainted, its once faded walls now bright, with murals, portraits of unity, hope, and possibility. Kids laughed in the yard, a jazz band rehearsed inside, and volunteers bustled around with quiet purpose. It wasn't just a building anymore, it was a legacy. John was there, helping unload boxes from a van, his sleeves rolled up as usual, his laughter mixing with the sound of saxophones. When he saw her, his grin spread slow and certain. "You're supposed to be resting, CEO," he teased. "You're supposed to stop lifting things you can delegate," she countered. "You know I'm bad at delegation." "And I'm bad at resting," she said. "Guess we're both doomed," he laughed, setting the box down. "So, how does it feel?" "Which part?" "Winning." She looked around, at the faces, the movement, the hum of life. "It doesn't feel like winning," she said softly. "It feels like peace." He nodded. "That's rarer. And quieter," she added. "But I think I like it that way." They walked together inside, where Mama Grace was organizing a book drive. She turned when she saw Olivia, her eyes crinkling into a smile. "Well, if it isn't my favorite troublemaker, you look different, child." "Older," Olivia joked. "Free," Grace said simply. Olivia's throat tightened. "I think that's the best compliment I've ever had." "Then earn it every day," Grace said, squeezing her hand before returning to her work. As the sun began to set, casting gold across the polished floors, Olivia and John stepped out to the porch. The air was warm, scented with jasmine and spring rain. "You ever think about what's next?" he asked. "All the time," she said. "But for once, I don't need the answer right away." "You know," he said, glancing sideways at her, "most people don't get second acts this good." "I didn't get a second act," she said. "I just stopped performing." He smiled and started living. Something like that. They stood in silence for a while, watching kids chase each other across the courtyard, laughter echoing through the dusk. Then John said quietly, "When I first met you, you were standing in front of a painting looking like someone who'd forgotten what she was worth. Now look at you." "Now I know," she said. "My worth doesn't come from what I've built or what I've lost. It comes from what I refuse to surrender." He looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "You know, you never told me what that first coffee meant to you." She laughed. "It meant I was curious. About you. About the version of myself that wasn't afraid to sit down with a stranger. And now? Now it means everything started exactly when it was supposed to." The last light of evening brushed their faces, the city fading into soft blue beyond them. Olivia felt the weight of the past year settle gently, no longer a burden, but a foundation. She had survived betrayal, public humiliation, and the slow unraveling of everything she'd once believed defined her. And yet, standing there beside John, surrounded by laughter, warmth, and the quiet rhythm of life continuing, she realized she hadn't just survived, she had evolved. John turned toward her, his voice low. "So, what's next for Olivia Reed?" She smiled, eyes glinting with something both tender and fierce. "Whatever scares me next," she said, "because that's where the truth always lives." They watched the last traces of sunlight melt into the horizon, and for the first time in a long time, Olivia didn't feel like she was standing at the end of a story. She felt like she was standing at the beginning of one, the kind she finally got to write on her own terms. And as the night embraced the city, she whispered the words that had carried her through every storm. "Grace under fire, always."